Welcome to Creatives. This is Ken Lehnig. And what I wanted to do was to begin to read some of my work. Well, these readings in the next few months will come from the John Blair series that's available on Amazon Books. Just type in my name, Ken Lehnig, Lehnig, and you'll go to the page. So the reading today will be a poem called Building, and that is in the book Peculiar Tellings. And then I'm going to read a story called Brando's Bane from Strange Reflections. Now, Brando's Bane, the characters use some pretty rough language, but I think you'll be entertained.
A poem. Building. I once knew an astral architect. She built smoke rings out of burning sentient leaves like clouds. Then she whispered secret words through them, into one of my ears, out the other, wisps in my memory. She found word forms that twisted thought, transformed meanings, changing and renaming, creation as play, renaming me. She laughed while she danced on silvered clouds, pulling me along with a tether wrapped tightly, made of expectations. She asked me to sing harmony, casting smoky spells for the future, foundations built on intentions. She told me stone secrets. I could never remember what she said. She's too soon faded, but left her constructs behind. A guy walks into a diner. Brando's Bane. Brando wasn't much. He was decidedly too short, too ugly, and always ready to put the scam on anyone unaware enough to allow it. His money-making activity lately had taken an even deeper excursion into the darker realms, and he was depressed by it. He didn't like selling drugs. It wasn't his thing. Removing a little money from someone stupid enough to think that the world is fair and a safe place was a lesson to them. Brando considered himself a professional, and preying on the weakness of some poor, out-of-control rube was not, by Brando's loose and flexible morality, ethical. For the first time, 2 weeks ago, he sort of prayed. Brando did not believe in God, so he just cast a hopeful line into the cosmos. It was 3 a.m. on a rainy Wednesday when he walked into Jammin' Louie's Cafe down on 23rd. The place was empty, and all 300 pounds of an all-white clad Louie was behind the counter wiping out coffee cups. Brando walked in, took off his coat, and hung it up on the rack by the door. Louis smiled, jumped up. Jesus on a Palomino, where the hell you been? I ain't seen you for over a month now. Thought maybe you got pinched or worse. Louis poured Brando a cup as the little man climbed up on a stool. That's funny. That's that cool bussy thing from that werewolf movie, huh? With the kid in the souped-up wheel thing. Hey, Louis, how's the missus? Brando put in 3 teaspoons of sugar in his coffee and a little cream. He tasted it and put another teaspoon of sugar. Good coffee. Thanks. I've been buying a gourmet stuff for the night crowd. In the past, except for a few derelicts and hypes, that's been you and me. Where the hell you been? How's the wife? Brando asked again, with his head down. Louis turned and poured himself a cup and walked around to sit next to Brando. Only one cheek fit on the stool, and it creaked in complaint. The label suggested maximum weight load was on the bottom of the seat, and Louis exceeded that by no small amount. I heard you started selling sniff uptown. Louis looked at Brando's suit and pinched a bit of the sleeve and rolled it. Nice fucking suit. Powder business good with this glass tower bunch? Or is this from the Armani grift you pulled off last summer? There was an edge in his voice. Gave it up 3 weeks ago. You know how I feel about that. Not right. Me selling shit to the swells when I should be bilking them. So, what, you had a fit of conscience? Happened to me in Nam, you know. Remember? Louis shifted his weight to the other cheek, and the poor stool again groaned. He took another sip of coffee, holding down the mug with both hands. I never thanked you for helping me and the missus. It was a grand going out for my dad. Buried out of the city, green, real nice. I couldn't have swung it with what this place pulls in. Hail drummed against the night-dark wall and window. Neither man visibly reacted. Weather sure is a mess, Brando whispered. A week, they say, rain and hail. A flash of light and a boom of thunder shook the cafe. Just like that night in Nam, Louis whispered. That wasn't your fault. If that government issue MP hadn't fucked with you, let it go. It's past. Brando patted the big man's shoulder with his tiny hands. Thunder roared and the hail was replaced by hard-ass rain. A week, you say? Louis turned to watch the rain through the window. I haven't been around for a while. How's the missus? Brando struck his big nose with a coffee cup and sniffed. Smells good, don't it? Louis rose with a grunt, walked around to the counter, and poured Brando another cup. Let me make us some breakfast. I got a little sirloin, a couple eggs, potatoes of brine, wheat toast. He walked around to the griddle and stared through at Brando through the pass-through opening. Joe and Cindy handle the daylight hours for me. You know them. You used Cindy on that barrier bond gig a couple years back. Damn. Louis wiped sweat from his eyes as he worked at their meal. She still talks about that. Mindful she never speaks on the matter outright. She's a clever girl. You believe in God, don't you, Louis? I mean, I know you and your missus got Jesus in your heart. Fucking A. Gotta serve somebody. Louis started laughing heartily at the wordplay. You know how I feel. Brando zipped his coffee, then put more sugar in the cup and stirred. It was hard to find the big G in Nam. Sure enough, Louis brought the plates out and put them down on the counter. He poured more coffee for both of them, sat down and with some steak sauce, a jug of jam, and walked around to sit next to Brando. They ate in silence, making sounds as they chewed. If you hadn't fragged that bastard, he would have had my drunken ass. Should have kept clear of that crap, only it seems a sure thing. How's the place going, Louis? Brando pointed at the steak sauce. Louis handed it to him. We're getting on. The wife still got the job at Frank's warehouse. They treat her good. Don't see much of her, kind of pass each other in the morning. Brando reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a wad of bills the size of Louis's fist. Mother of! Louis damn near fell off the stool. What are you into? Brando peeled off about 10,000 in hundreds and put it on the counter for Louis. He never looked at the big man, just continued to eat. Louis just stared at the money, then at Brando, then at the money, and then again at Brando. Don't be offended. I always let you know when I'm up to something. You always got my back, because we've been friends forever. This isn't what you think. Louis stood up and walked over and stared out the window, sipping his coffee. Brando kept eating as his friend pondered what had just happened. The silence was thick and uncomfortable. Took me a year to kick that junk. Been clean ever since. I'm a sinner, sure, but God don't abide no fucking junkie. Louis spoke with deep remorse in his voice. Money is yours. I know you could use it. I didn't come by it any way you might be thinking. Brando turned his stool to look at his friend. He stood and walked around the counter by the cash register, pulled out a box and opened it. He picked up the money and put it in the box. He walked around the counter, sat down, and continued eating his meal. Not a bad little steak. Still got the sawed off here behind the counter? Yeah, you never know. Not from selling junk, right? Fuck no. Okay. Louis sat down again. The stool groaned. Louis picked up his fork and knife, going at the steak. How about prayer? Brando barked. What about it? Well, if a person don't believe in God and they were to pray, what's the point then? I prayed because I was thinking, well, I wasn't much use to anyone, save you, old friend. I've been letting you down. My brain didn't work like it used to. Nothing came here. I end up pushing. Damn, Louis, I was as low as I could get, so I prayed. I figured it wouldn't hurt. You sure answered mine, Louis said. I took a loan from Frank. It's due with the fucking sun, and I don't have it. Brando looked at him. I remember a JW telling me once, if you pray and don't direct it, say who it's for, who knows who will answer? Brando looked in Louis' eyes. Jesus, has the beast taken you over? Louis spits a bit in surprise. He wiped his mouth, staring at his friend. Brando spoke. The reason I haven't come and the reason I came tonight is the same thing. I had to see you to see if I was crazy. Brando's eyes filled with tears. Crazy is taking a loan from that butthole Frank, he burped loudly. See how nervous I am? Indigestion. He's good to the old lady, though. He would never hurt her. A man walked in, jerking and looking all over the restaurant, acting like a ferret. The door rang a little bell on a spring attached to the wall. The tweaker jumped and turned at the sound. Just a minute, Brando. Let me get this man's meal. Louis stood, walked to the back, and brought out a large bag. Okay, Joe. 2 cheeseburgers, large fries, and a liter of soda. That's $13.65. Joe punched at the register. The drawer opened, and the hype nervously counted out the crumpled bills. He waved off the change and ran out, looking back at Brando. He made you as a narc. It scared him. I'll talk with him tomorrow and settle him down if that's possible. Louis laughed and cleared away their plates. He came back with a bottle of good brandy. He poured it in both their coffees and hid the bottle behind the counter. I got an idea you're about to tell me will require a little fortification. Brando gulped the whole cup and slid it in front of Louis. A flask appeared from somewhere on Louis' white and stained attire. He poured his tiny friend another snort. I got a ferry at my place. A what? Louis barked. A couple of things I can take and some I can't. The Lord don't abide ferries. He doesn't? Hell no. I won't have them in here neither. Last week a pair comes in all dressed up like hookers, but you could tell because they got Adam's apples. Louis pointed to an unspecified spot in his massive neck. Those are transvestites, Louis. They sell themselves as girls, and that's a sin, says the Bible. You don't read the Bible, Lou. The missus does, and she tells me. Brando turned and stared out in the rain. The street was empty. You do most of your business with odd folks, huh? Brando let out a huge and desperate sigh. Late, that's what's up and about. Drunks, hookers, tweakers, junkies, strippers, cokeheads, skinny wannabe rock stars with dyed black hair. I have a real ferry at my place, Brando said. Been there 2 weeks. They're jealous, you know. Brando stood and walked over to his coat. He started to put it on. Where are you going? Louis scolded. I made some apple pie. Brando stopped and stood with his head down. I've always liked your apple pie. I got a new recipe. Christ, it's amazing. Sit down, buddy. I'll cut you a piece. Louis went over to a glass case, perched it on the end of the counter. He pulled out a pie and still is yet uncut and perfect. Baked it tonight. Beautiful, ain't it? Emerald's got nothing on me. After 2, it's slow. I usually try to get 2 or 3 baked for the day crowd. Brando went back behind the counter and poured himself a glass of water. He pulled out a bottle, opened it, and dropped 2 tablets in his hand. Headaches. He swallowed the tablets and sat down at the stool closest to the door. I'm lying. This is his recipe. I saw it on cable. He has a lot more cinnamon than I did, but just a touch of mace, too. Louis cut the pie and served up with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. He sat beside Brando, taking note of how close he was to the door. So this gay bastard, he got something over on you? You seemed awful skittish. I ain't seen you act like this since the Tet. There ain't a... Look, I'm talking about a real fairy, like in the kids' stories. Not following, pal. Elves, trolls under the bridge, giants in the clouds, like that. A real fucking fairy. Brando starts to laugh and it builds and just as fast dies down. Brando wipes the tears from his eyes and forks the treat in front of him. He tastes the pie. Louis just looks at him like he's nuts. Damn, you are right when you are right. This is the best pie I've ever tasted. Brando spooned another bite into his mouth. A smidgen of ice cream landed on his lap. Oh, I'll get you some club soda for that. Louis started to rise. Brando put his hand on Louis' sleeve. Watch. The spot of ice cream disappeared. She takes care of me, Brando said in a low voice. Louis didn't look. Brando sighed. Are you tweaking, seeing things? Louis' concern was real and desperate, and it showed in his face. His friend meant too much for him to be acting crazy. Brando saw the look. He gave it to him long ago when he killed the MP. And it was Louis who, although happy his friend stepped up, did not like the look he saw in Brando's eyes. Killing has become too easy for his buddy. They buried the man, and Louis swore an oath to Brando that he always would have his back. But the catch was when they got home, no more killing. Louis had found a way to channel that energy, and Brando had become the best grifter he had ever seen. Even the cops gave him respect. Only the bad went down because Brando had principles. Did you kill someone? Oh, Mary and Joseph, you found out about Frank? Oh, tell me, pal, you didn't whack Frank. I would have told you if you'd come around. Sweet Mary. Louis got up and started pacing. Saints, what are you going to do? I got to get you out of town. Frank's a made man. Louis, calm down. I didn't kill anybody. Louis stared at his friend for a moment, searching Brando's face. His body relaxed. He sat down and the stool broke. Damn. Move down here, then I'll tell you what the fuck is going on. Oh, geez, you're making me nuts. Brando walked around and poured himself another coffee. He nodded at Louis and begged off. I told you. You see, the joke was a fucking fairy. I'm fucking a real live fairy. Okay, Louis rubbed his ample face. Now you're gay? This is too much for one freaking night. Lou, I'm not gay. I'm fucking a fairy. A girl fairy, you know, with wings and all. Let me get this straight. You ain't gay, but you're boinking a fairy with wings. That's it. If she's got wings, you must do it from the back, right? Yeah, she can't lie down on her back. Did I mention how jealous they are? Brando, you got to be having some serious flashback shit happening. That chick ain't a girl. It's one of those girl boys that are dressed up like fairy princes and running around on you. They come in sometimes. Some are genuine pretty. And they get me thinking nasty thoughts until I see their friends got Adam's apples. You check if this fairy's got an Adam's apple. Louis, I've been with her naked. Make no mistake, this is a girl. The most beautiful girl I've ever seen, with wings. She got naked for you? Brando, no offense, but you're not the finest example of manhood available. You're not a handsome man. You got a great heart, but you're ugly. You never saw any girl naked unless you paid for it. All that is true, and I won't take offense. Hell, I know I'm ugly. It's always worked for me, you know. I was always underestimated. That gave me the edge. But for your information, I did see your Cindy naked. She left my place with no complaint. You paid her. For the job, not the sex. She asked me for it, and that's why she speaks well of me. I'm underestimated in that area, too. All right. She does kind of brag on you. Couldn't figure out why. Brando sat down. She said, the fairy, that she answered my prayer. She said I was lucky. Anything could have hurt and come. Maybe even something bad. Lucky me. Brando sipped his coffee and went back to his pie. Great pie. The two men sat in silence for a bit, eating their pie. Okay, Louis asked. So you prayed, and a beautiful fairy shows up and screws the shit out of you. I take it she's magic, and that explains the money. Brando nodded. Okay, then. Why are you so miserable? She won't let me out unless... Brando's voice broke. She knows my every thought, Louis. My every fucking thought. She does everything I ask of her. Perfect, really. Did I mention how beautiful she was? Did I mention that fairies are jealous? Louis nodded and rubbed his head. So why are you acting like this? She won't let me out unless... I get so distracted I can't think right. Get to it, man. What do you have to do? Brando stood up. He looked around and then unzipped his pants and let his slacks drop to the floor. Louis didn't want to look at first, but he did. Damn. That's disgusting. Where's your cock and balls? Do you tucking him back the way the girl boys do? Louis sat up straight. Don't ask me how I know that. Brando opened his knees. There was no cock and balls, just smooth skin without blemish or mar. He pulled up his pants, zipped up butt, and sat down. If I go out, she takes him. So that unvirtuous dollies and trollops, sluts and harlots do not tempt me. That's the word she uses. Unvirtuous dollies and trollops. She has your package back at your place? That's why I never went out. I wanted to see you. Finally, I let her do it so I could come and see you. She can put them back on, right? Yeah. I made her show me first so I could trust her. Brando choked and almost started crying. Oh, pal, Louis patted his small shoulders. Otherwise, good, huh? Yeah, really no complaints. Brando took some napkins out of the middle holder in the counter and wiped his eyes and blew his huge nose. I guess I can get used to it, get back in the game. Louis stood up and looked outside. Still raining. Sun will come up soon. Not so anybody could tell. He walked around the counter and leaned down on his vast elbows in front of Brando. You are my best friend, and I would do anything for you. Don't let something like you being without your package keep you away. Hell, I'd be the only one who knew, and I got your back, always. This time of night, it's generally just you and me anyway. You don't need for money anymore, right? Louis put the rest of the pie back in the glass cabinet and wiped the counter, washed his hands, wiped them, and looked down at his diminutive friend. Pretty, is she? Louis smiled a smile that would light up the world. She's absolutely beautiful. And you and yours won't have no worries either, Lou. That's always been my promise. Well, can't be all bad, right? Brando sat up straight and smiled a big, ugly smile at his dearest friend in the world. Thanks, Louis. The men enjoyed the silence a while. A car drove up and parked right outside the window. Louis looked up as the doors of the black Lincoln slammed. The bell over the door rang, and two thugs dressed in dark suits and overcoats walked in and stood threateningly still. Louis walked over to the register, gave Brando a wink, and took out the cash box. He opened it and counted out some bills. Brando had given them and handed it to the man who stood slightly in front. He took the money from Louis without counting and nodded to Louis and nodded respect to Brando. Both men turned and left. The doorbell rang as they walked outside. The Lincoln started up and drove off. Louis stared out the window at the rain falling on the still dark street. How's the missus? Brando asked. She's great, but I don't see her much these days.